So, what has this journey been like for the three of you? Because the thing about this movie is the first one is so loved, and then you are making the sequel to something beloved, and you really don't know, like, what people like. Man, I just butchered the whole beginning of this. But when did you realize that you made something that it was really resonating with people, and that, you know what I mean, that you didn't strike out after the first one being a home run?
I mean, I think once it came out, it was, you know, we're just like you guys. We're waiting to see what the reactions are, you know, when the thing drops. We definitely got some positive feedback as we screened it. We got some negative feedback as we screened it. But we were sort of left with a film that I think we knew we were into, and that was, I think, the best estimate is, like, you sort of make something for yourself that you know you like, and you hope that other people are along for the journey.
Yeah, and I think also, like, when we were wrapping the film up, when we were done, and we started getting our pre-sales, I started going, people might actually go see this movie. Like, I think people might actually want to see this movie, guys. Yeah. And then it kept happening. There kept being wave after wave of people going to the theater, and thank you all for going to the theater to see it, and for those of you even coming to see it for the first time, because you make these movies and you just hope that they land. And the fact that it did was not just, it wasn't just that it landed like at the box office and that was amazing. It was that audiences were coming up to us afterwards, and that's when I knew we had made something maybe cool, is because audiences were coming up to us afterwards saying, wow, and thank you for making that movie, and telling us how much it meant to them. And I think we were just trying to make a film that meant something to us. Yeah. So the fact that they were able to feel that and come back to us and tell us that they felt what we were trying to build, that's when we kind of knew maybe this is something good.
Maybe it was also when you were nominated for Best Animated Feature at the Academy Awards.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, you know, we do screen it a lot for preview audiences, and when we're screening it, it's in different levels of completion, meaning like very incomplete. And the first couple were pretty rough, you know, and it was encouraging to hear from the guys on the first film how rough some of their audience previews were. But I think it was like one of the last one or two previews where the story had kind of really locked in. And even though it wasn't animated yet, you could see that people were emotionally getting into it. Because the thing about animation is, the irony is animation can't save animation. The story and the emotion has to be there in 2D. You can't just be like, oh, well, this isn't good, but when it's pretty, it's gonna work. No, it's just gonna be pretty and not work. So it was one of the last previews we did where I think people were, like, they really leaned in and got emotional. And there were several things in those previews that we hadn't really sorted out yet. Like, you guys probably remember, like the Donald Glover cameo. Oh, yeah. He hadn't agreed to do it yet. Yeah. So in the preview, we had like a South Park style cardboard cutout of Donald Glover. He was like, hi, I'm Donald Glover. And he was just like a flappy head. And everyone was cracking up, and I'm like, is anyone gonna call Donald Glover and see if he's gonna do this cameo? Because we did it just a few weeks, but we recorded him just a few weeks before the film came out. Right. So we were, it was kind of crazy because it was like the film still wasn't quite all there, but it was there. That was a story we knew we were trying to tell, and people. So I started feeling pretty good about it then. So
this audience is made up of a lot of fans of this movie and people that just saw it. You mentioned something right now with the Donald Glover. You filmed it a few weeks before it came out. What other things do you think would surprise fans of this movie to learn about the making of the film?
Wow. I mean, it's a big question.
I think most of the there's so many surprises. I think people would. It's a lot. It's a lot because that's the thing. This is a living, making this movie. It's a living thing. So it's not done until it's like out in theaters. So we were making changes until like the very last minute. And again, we tweaked it. Like initially in Earth 42 at the end, that Miles wasn't the Prowler, remember? Yep. So we had even designed the character quite differently, and we were and it was fairly late in the game, and we were kind of doing an audience review, and we started texting one another during the review, and I felt so guilty because it was like, oh my God, the character designers are gonna have to redo this character because wouldn't it be great if he was the Prowler in this universe? So
And that was Kemp's pitch.
yeah, like it was a wild, like, and that was the kind of thing. It was like it was never too late to like make it better. So I mean, these guys. I mean, it's if you gave me time to think about it, it would be a lot of things like that, like the Donald Glover moment, you know, Prowler Miles, all these things that were like not in the film for years.
And we cut and recut the beginning of that film with Gwen more. I mean, it's one of the first things we worked on. It's one of the last things that was worked on. That thing was huge. That thing was really small. It was all shapes and sizes.
I think another one that would probably surprise you is the ending that you just watched, where Spider-Gwen goes out and gathers Peter B and Mayday and Penny and Noir and Ham, and she kind of gets the band back together to go save Miles, and you're filled with hope and excitement that, oh, they're gonna go back and, oh, it's coming, they're gonna get the band back together. That wasn't there, like until about 6 weeks before the film wrapped. Right. We actually had a screening, and it just ended with Miles on the bag, and everybody was just like,
wah,
boo,
wah.
boo, and we went, oh God, what do we got to do? we got to do something. And we ran back and we quickly scrambled and, you know, brainstormed and realized, like, we went back and watched Empire Strikes Back again and got, how did Empire Strikes do it? Empire Strikes Back do it? And like we realized, oh, they gave you hope at the end.
Yeah, we're gonna go rescue Han, guys. Right. Got my new hand.
Oh yeah. Okay, new hand, go rescue Han. Okay, we need our go rescue Han moment. So I mean, we animated all that, like boarded it, animated it, put it all together within 6 weeks, and then screened it again.
Yeah.
Audience went through the roof, like, and we went, okay.
Yeah. And I mean, the reason that happened too is because we already had like the very next scene worked on. Right. So our minds, we had the continuity, like we knew where the story was going. Yeah. So, you know, we were like, okay, this is fine because we know where it's going to pick up.
It's a cliffhanger.
It's a cliffhanger for a reason, but we didn't know until we put it in front of an audience how it kind of came across like a snuff film.
Well, it's little things too, right? So it's like the difference of Miles being like in this really bad position and it looks grim for him versus a little character modulation, like, you know, him starting to touch the chain and the sparks coming through his hands and that glint in his eye. And it's really, really subtle, but you can see the Prowler's gauntlet there. It starts dimming a little bit because he's drawing power from the gauntlet. So those little things, it's almost subconscious, but it really does help you feel like Miles has some agency in the scene.
Yeah, there's some lessons to learn in storytelling in this, because I was actually having a really interesting conversation with a screenwriter a couple of weeks ago about how you can have a dark ending and all you have to do is give a little hint of hope for the audience to like fill in the blanks and know that it's going to get worked out. And we were talking about, it was a TV series I'd only seen recently called Beef, and I don't know if anyone's seen it, but it ends like hella dark.
Yeah.
But like, you know, spoiler alert, sorry, I'm gonna ruin Beef for you guys, but like at the end the dude gets shot and he's like in a coma and she's like laying on him and days go by and the very last shot is just him moving his arm, like to hug her back. And you go like, he's gonna be all right. Yeah. You know, so you don't have to give people too much, but you just gotta give them a little bit of hope so that they know it's gonna work out in the end.
One of the things about animation is every frame costs a lot of money. And I'm curious, for the audience, what shots are surprisingly more money than you think they would be?
The counselor's office. Yeah. That's like the most expensive counselor scene in any movie ever made. It is, without a doubt, one of the scenes we worked on the hardest, the longest, and started first and ended last. Because honestly, it's all story in this case, but we were just trying to get the rhythm of that scene. And what it's setting up is actually so important. Actually, it's setting up so much for the movie. Miles is wanting to leave, he's wanting to leave the nest. His parents, we're finding out his parents have these big expectations for him. She doesn't want him to leave Brooklyn, even to go to school, next door. Like, even that's too far. And we realized he's been he feels kind of cramped and sort of unable to sort of express himself and he wants to go out and spread his wings. We're sort of feeling what he's saying at the start of his journey. And it was so important to get the messaging of that right and set up that like, you're gonna, just remember, like, we built all this for you. We've done all this for you. You kind of owe us. And he's kind of saying, yeah, but I can't do that if I'm here with you. I can't, if I stay here, I can't be who I am meant to be. He's saying in that scene what he's about to do, which is leave and go be who he is meant to be and discover what real life is really all about and who his real friends are, and test all the things, all the lessons that his parents have given him. Like, don't let anybody tell you that you don't belong. He's about to go test what that all means. So that scene, to modulate it and get it all right, believe me, we probably animated it, relit it, like reblocked it, like reshot it, like redid the lenses on it, the lensing on it, probably for 2 years.
Yeah, easily.
I mean, I would say that rooftop barbecue, that damn food. Like, flan might be cheap in real life. It's not cheap to put into an animated film and have it look nice and shiny on the top. But like figuring out the food in the rooftop barbecue, which actually changed a lot. The other thing is pretty much any shot that had Spider-Punk in it.
Yeah.
Because he was like a special effect unto himself.
He was like a special effect within a special effect.
Yeah, like there was a discussion about like, this character's expensive. Like the character, visibly seeing the character is like an expensive choice because of all that went into him. So anytime you see Spider-Punk, it was just like, cha-ching. Like that was...
There's like a national debt meter going when he's on screen.
One you wouldn't think is a simple act like Gwen putting up her hair. I remember like riggers going like, please, dude, no, not the hair. Don't do the hair, please.
You can't touch the hair.
Can't touch the hair. Her hair.
The other thing is mask, right?
Masks,
Pulling off and on mask is like ridiculous in these.
You have no idea.
I have to interrupt you guys. Was there anything that was cheap in this movie?
Us.
Yeah, that's about it.
One of the things, so every frame in this movie, no BS, is like a painting. It's amazing. I think everyone in this audience feels that way. So is there, now that the movie's been out and you can go, frame by frame if you want, are there any frames or scenes that you strongly recommend people pay attention to, pushing pause at a certain point? Or maybe there's things the animators put in that you don't even know?
There were some of those. I think the animators snuck in a bunch of stuff that we don't know about.
They put us in it and we didn't know.
Yeah, we didn't know. We didn't know we were.
We're in the background when he's fighting with the Spot. The three of us are like next to the chess players, and I was like, oh shit, that's us.
And I'm sitting there with a fine-tooth comb, like going over every pixel and like sort of like okay, the color here and that needs to be darker, and maybe the lights need to move around. And I'm watching that scene. We probably see every scene, every shot, every frame 3,000 times before you've seen it, and I never even noticed it.
That's right.
I mean, I was just. It's sort of like a gorilla walks through the room, but you're paying attention to everything else, and you don't see the gorilla in the crowd.
Because it's like BG.
I'm like a gorilla.
You forget. You kind of like BG characters all start blending into one another, so they could do something like put us in with the BG characters, and it might get past us. We have bigger things to be concerned about.
Yeah.
What was the biggest surprise in terms of fan reactions to this film? In terms of, did fans pick out something that you were like, wow, like I didn't realize they were going to love this the way that they loved it?
Miguel's butt.
I got to push back on that. I actually feel a little offended because I put myself in charge of making Miguel the thirst trap.
That's true. That is true.
From day one, I said, I am on butt duty. I want to make sure his butt is as tight as possible. I want close-ups. I want to get the camera there, and I want him to turn. I want his back to the camera when we first introduce him, so you can really appreciate it. And so no. I was not surprised.
All right. Well, you took it in stride, but I was very surprised. I
was surprised how far it went, though.
We did struggle with having a character as like physically robust as Miguel. Yeah. That was a thing, because I think Phil especially has sort of an aversion to like overly muscular characters. Yes. And we were like, this Spider-Person is different. He's not like the gymnast. He's like the bodybuilder. He's got to be big. So that was.
I think Phil must have been picked on by bodybuilders at some point.
He must have been.
Because like we had to convince him it's okay for him to have muscles.
That's right.
We should mention Phil Lord.
Phil Lord.
Yeah. Phil Lord, our producer.
Yeah. So listen, you guys are up here, and because you're the directors, and but there are so many people that worked on this movie. Yeah. So I like for each of you, who is like an unsung hero that you want to shine a light on, that basically to just thank them for their contributions to the film that perhaps people might not think about.
I mean, for me, I'm gonna keep it a little personal because this is sort of like the background that I came from, but the story artists are usually the first people that get a hold of a film and start to really visualize it and put a lens on it. And our story department was phenomenal. One artist in particular, her name was Sarah Partington. She just absolutely was such a pro the entire way. She was on from the very beginning of the film to the very end of the film. Which doesn't usually happen on a feature film. People sort of come and go and take other gigs. She was incredibly dedicated, and she always brought new ideas and cool ideas and fresh ideas.
Yeah, for me, I think it would probably, unsung, I'd have to give it to Melanie Duke, who was our script coordinator. Ooh. Because, man, this film got rewritten so much often while we were in recording sessions, and it was really Melanie's job to make sure the script was always conformed, and that can be difficult when you have pages coming in from 4 or 5 different people at the same time. So, you know, you would have pages coming in from Phil and Chris and Dave Callahan and me. Yeah. Like we were like firing pages at her, sometimes at the same time while we're doing a recording session.
Yeah, over text,
and she had to like conform all of this and make sure that the script was the most like updated version of it. And it's the kind of thing that, honestly, if I had to do her job, I'd have probably had a panic attack. So
I will say it got so bad sometimes, these rewrites, that we'd be in records, like virtual records, and I would just pretend my phone broke. I'd be like, I'm out. Sorry, my phone's not working. Computer just went down. I couldn't take it because they were coming in so fast and furious. Yeah. Melanie did it with a smile on her face the whole time.
Yeah, she really deserves like real unsung hero. Like pretty much, she never missed a line of dialogue. She never missed an alt because we would all have different ideas like, oh, make sure they try this and that. And she would like in real time be updating it all. So yeah, Melanie Duke.
There's actually, so we've talked, we hear a lot about, and he deserves every bit of praise, Michael Lasker, our visual effects supervisor. Mm-hmm. But then there's 2 other names, Brett St. Clair and Pav Grachola, who are our look of picture supervisors. They are the people who, working with Michael Lasker, our visual effects supervisor, those 2 guys, and I've worked with them now for 18 years at ImageWorks, but they are the geniuses who write all the software, who create all the tools, who are just sort of like, they're like what I call the wizards, who really create all these magical tools that enable all the texture artists, the lighting artists, the animators, all the line work you see on the characters, the paint that's dripping on the walls behind Gwen. They're the ones that are creating all this technology, and whenever we in a room are sitting there going, could it be like, I don't know, could Hobie's like arm be one color and then his head be another color? And could his other arm be like black and white like newspaper? And then can this like leg be like red and yellow and like it's moving at a different frame rate? And then maybe his body's moving at a different frame rate. And then maybe like when he's moving around, they just look at us and go, yeah, we can figure that out. Yeah. They really are geniuses who make it like possible for the 1,000. They are developing the tools that the artists you've heard it before, a crew of 1,000 people. They're the ones making all those tools and sort of supervising all that. So Brett St. Clair, Pav Grachola for sure.
So the 3 of you made this film, and it's not usual for 3 people to work on a movie. And I think for the people out there, can you sort of explain how you each took point on this movie, if at all? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, we get this question a lot, by the way.
Sure.
I think, we had the benefit of like the first year and a half that we were working on it. We were across every meeting together. meeting with every artist, looking at the same screen, and we really like got to know each other as people. We got to understand each other's tastes. We got to, we sort of become like psychically linked after that year. And each of us
think of Pacific Rim, two guys running a Jaeger.
That's right.
Just we were the 3-person Jaeger.
We drank some Jaeger too. I think what ends up happening is that we each sort of have our specialty that we came from. Justin was a production designer on the first Spider-Verse film. Kemp's an amazing playwright, and he's just an amazing writer, and he works with actors like nobody that I know. And I came from the world of storyboarding and sort of thinking about camera and stuff. So once the real production machine started going, we got to sort of dip back into our specialties, and then we would have these moments where we would have to interface. Sometimes that's like a quick passing in the halls. Did you see that scene? What did you think? Yes. And then when we didn't have opportunities to see each other, we sort of knew each other's tastes at that point. So we were, again, that's where the sort of piloting the Jaeger part came in. And Justin is like the super pro. I've said it a million times. He will pause a meeting that's been going on for 45 minutes. It's really jamming, and he'll say you know what? We need all 3 of us in the room right now. And he'll just give us a call and say, come in. It's 2 minutes. We look at the thing. We get sign off. Everybody goes back.
This movie has so many things that I would consider my favorite part of the film. So for each of you, is there a scene or sequence that you are especially proud of, a moment that really, you know what I mean? Something you'll always cherish about this film?
Yeah, for me, I would say every part of this film is amazing, but it was amazing to work on and to be a part of and develop with these guys and with our crew. But on a personal level, there's this scene where Miles is fighting Miguel on this train, and they're going up to the moon, and then at one point, Gwen's guess what? We lied to you. And he's like, I don't like you. And he jumps off, and he goes back to headquarters, and he's sneaking around invisible. And there's this weird spider thing that comes out and weaves, and this weird spider comes out, and it weaves this laser web around him, and it's sending him back home. And then there's this moment where he's connecting with Margot Spider Bite, and there's that eye contact, and she's trying to decide, do I shut it down, or do I let this kid go? And she sees the rage in Miguel's face when he's ripping the thing apart. That whole scene for me was kind of like a childhood sort of there's a reference there. That spider is a reference to there's a movie. This is going to be really dorky, but have you guys ever seen a movie called Kroll? If you've never seen a movie called Kroll, I'm sorry if you go see it now, it's terrible. But there's a stop motion spider in there, and Anir is what I called that spider. That stop motion spider that's in this movie Kroll was amazing to me when I was 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. It changed my life. It made me want to make stop motion films. And so getting, for me personally, to make that and have a reason and have a really fitting moment where we needed something really weird that Miles would be I don't know what's going on, and the audience doesn't really know what's going on, and it's this weird, awkward, sort of strange moment that could be magical and beautiful at the same time. It was the feeling that I had as a kid from watching that movie and being able to put it in this was kind of amazing for me.
Yeah, for me, I think it was Miles and Gwen under the clock tower was a really pivotal scene for me, and it was personal for a couple of reasons. First, because I was really inspired by some of the films of Cameron Crowe, Say Anything, the teen romances, and wanted to really have that quiet moment. Another reason was because throughout this process, we always said we weren't trying to do what they did on the first film, but bigger. We wanted to do something different. And a question people would often ask us is what's gonna be the leap of faith moment? Into the Spider-Verse has this great moment, the leap of faith moment, where you guys probably remember he leaps off the building. It's an incredible moment, we all love it. And it was we're not gonna have our leap of faith moment is gonna be something subtle and quiet. And that clock tower scene, it was so awesome when the film came out, how that kind of them sitting upside down quietly became the most iconic image of our entire film, because truth be told, that scene really had to earn its way into the movie. It's the type of moment a quiet conversation that you often don't get to do in animated films because, as you said, it all has to be built. It's expensive. You're often cutting for efficiency. So long pauses and close-ups and, you know, gestures and exchanges don't get to happen that often in animated films. So the fact that not only did it earn its way into the film, but it kind of became like the defining image of our film, and it's like not the leap of faith. It's just a quiet moment. That feels like real personal and almost like a double win.
And I'm just going to say Gwen's hair. Upside down on that one. A lot of money. Yeah, I mean, you know, for me, there's, again, so many moments, but I think one of the things that I was really proud of, and you don't usually get to see it in like spider films, but it was the escalation and the intensity between Miguel and Miles when they're on the train. That sort of ferocious stuff, it plays well because you've been on the journey with the characters. And we had a moment, I can remember, we sort of turned it into a joke because we watched these films like 100 times and editorial. But there's a moment where Miguel slams Miles into this one train, and Miles elbows him like 3 times in the head before he takes off. And we were like, it's got to be 3 times. Kemp went full bloodlust and was like, it has to be 3 times.
They wanted it to be 1 elbow. I was like, no, 3.
3.
He's got to get licks in on this dude.
I boarded it as 3, and then you held the line, man. And you know, and it's not action for action's sake. You know, all that stuff when he's got Miles pinned to the train and he's in his face. Every step of production accentuated that scene and added to that scene. And it started with the idea that we're going to see spider people do action that feels more intense, because usually it's flipping and it's very balletic and you know, you see a lot of like cool gymnast type moves. This was not about that. This was about being in each other's face and being very intense.
So one of the things I wanted to touch on is the runtime, which is the movie's about 2 hours, 20 minutes. Did you ever have any sort of feedback from the studio, or then I guess the answer is yes, about can we get this to 2 hours? Can we get it even shorter? Like how much debate is there on a run? You know, because also every minute costs money.
Yeah, it does. But you know, obviously in the beginning, the studio was like, what do you mean it's going to be super long? And what do you mean? And we were just trying to make a great movie. Yeah. And sometimes for something to get better, it does have to get longer, as we like to say. Yeah. And we would in editorial, we would add those kind of quiet moments that Kemp is referring to, and it would stretch out. And to make the pacing of this film feel right, we had to give it breathing room. We had to let some scenes be quiet and be longer, and let you feel the space between things, and then also that would help make those more actiony sequences that you're just talking about feel faster and feel more frenetic, because we had those quiet moments. And at first, they were, why is it so long? But then we started having audience screenings. And they started seeing the reaction and seeing that, like, you know, it didn't feel like that long. Are you sure? How long was it? Because it didn't feel long. And audiences, time and time again, when they would get asked, we had like 10, 11 screenings of this movie. And when we would have audience screenings and the studio kept waiting, watch, they're all going to hate how long this is. Consistently, they were saying, no, we want more. Right. And because they were so engaged and they were so involved the whole time, and that was our goal. Make sure that the audience was engaged. Make sure that they're not losing, they're tracking Miles and they're staying with him emotionally through the whole film. And once they saw that the audiences were willing to go with it, they kind of backed off and they let us just finish it.
We're basically out of time, but I'm going to sneak in one more question if you don't mind.
Let's go.
So, the titles of these movies are very literal. You have Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. You have Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. We all know what these two mean. So what exactly does Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse, what does that mean?
It means it will be totally unexpected.
There is your answer.
On that note, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed the movie and you are on social media, please spread the love. And outside of that, please thank our brilliant filmmakers for making such an awesome movie.
Thank you.
Thanks for staying late.
Thanks.
Thank you.